Welcome to the 9642 podcast. This is your host, Mr. Number 9.
And this is The Fool.
Alright, everybody. We are today, at least for the start, so far, planned to go ahead with football.
Yeah.
And there's just so much happening. We had originally planned to talk other topics, but if this goes on for ages, this might be a two-parter.
Possibly,
This
yes.
bit potentially edited out. We'll see how it goes.
See how it goes.
But a lot has happened in the world of football. Obviously, our bread and butter is the Premier League, though we did do a bit of, I think, a pretty interesting roundup of the other European leagues last time we spoke.
Yeah.
There's been some Champions League matches, and there are some Champions League matches to come. So, without any further ado, let's get right into it. Politics aside, what are the Chelsea fixtures that are coming up? Because this is the uncertain period, and while Chelsea have performed admirably, things are going to get interesting for them.
Yes. I mean, we've got a somewhat easy-ish yet. We've got Norwich tomorrow, which is one of our catch-up games. Hopefully, touch wood, that goes well and Norwich doesn't suddenly find some form, and we can do about as well as we did against Burnley in the weekend. Then we've got Newcastle, which may be a bit more challenging than what it's might have been a while back, but Newcastle's finding their form.
There's Lille. You have a 2-goal cushion there.
Yeah, going to Lille, so that's a little worrisome, and hopefully Lille doesn't pull a Real Madrid on us.
And then Borough for the FA Cup.
Then Borough the FA Cup. Before we're back to Brentford and Southampton, Leeds, and then West Ham towards the end of April. So I mean, Brentford, Southampton, Leeds is not and with Norwich and Newcastle isn't a bad run through March and the first half of April to make sure that we keep in touch with what's happening at the top. But yeah, then we have at the end we got West Ham and Manchester United, sort of really between us and the end of the season. That's the two, quote unquote, tough games. We've got Wolves in there as well who are playing well, but
Manchester United are not finishing fourth. I think Arsenal, remarkably, have come back up, and I think they are going to secure that fourth spot. They've got 3 games on United and West Ham, and they're ahead of both those teams.
They have both.
They've also got a game on Spurs, and they're 3 points ahead of them.
Yeah, so they've both got points and games in hand. They got the bird in the bush and the bird in hand. Yeah.
There is an off chance they might catch up to Chelsea, depending on how things go.
They've only got one game on us, so it's not so bad, but yeah.
Yeah, depending on how Chelsea play over the next few weeks. But I think fourth looks very likely for them. My cousin, who's a hardcore Arsenal fan, was telling me he thought Chelsea might be in trouble and United and Arsenal will go up, but I told him, hell no. United are not finishing fourth. There's absolutely no chance, based on what I've seen in the squad. I think Arsenal on Sunday, April the 24th, they play United. March 17th, St. Patrick's Day, they play Liverpool. They play Leicester coming up. So Arsenal do have a bunch of tough fixtures that are coming up for them. But they're a team in form. So that's the flip side of that, which makes it difficult for me to bet against them.
I would say that their fixture list sort of shows that why they won't catch Chelsea, unless because Chelsea does something horrible, or the whole ownership thing really just unsettles the squad or something like that. But I feel the differences in what matches are there, and Arsenal still got difficult ones. They've got Liverpool there, they've got a United one, they've got a West Ham game. Like there's a few in there that are going to be difficult. Newcastle up at Newcastle, as opposed to the Chelsea game where they're coming down to us. So
I did say that I thought Manchester United might not win a Premier League match in March. I do think they will get the result against Atletico and maybe get through to the next round. But even if they don't, I think Manchester United's goal is to try and win the Champions League this season or the Europa League. That is what they're focused on
Yeah.
because they are not getting promoted. They're not getting relegated and they're not finishing fourth. That ship has sailed for them. They've still got to play Chelsea. They've got to
Yeah.
play Spurs, obviously, their next game in a few days. They've got to play Leicester, and they've got to play Arsenal.
They've got a
They have
Liverpool
a
game
bunch
as
of
well.
teams who are basically scrapping to avoid relegation. Everton, Brentford, Brighton,
Yeah.
and maybe even Crystal Palace. Who knows at that point of the season?
Heck.
So
Or maybe, yeah. I would suspect Crystal Palace shouldn't be, but yeah,
I don't
maybe.
think Crystal Palace will be either. But yeah, at that point, I could very easily see Manchester United only get maybe 3 or 4 points in April. I don't think they're getting any points. Other than even the Watford game, they got 1 point. Which I
That's
think
technically February anyway.
that was February. Yeah, so March, I don't think they're getting any points. And they have games in hand on people, so people can catch up to them.
Yeah.
Like in the Premier League, yeah, Everton they should maybe be able to beat. They should be able to beat Norwich and Leicester. I don't know if they can beat Arsenal. Like April's a really important month to see how our Manchester United,
Yeah.
like just so that they can get into some sort of form for Europe. But those are not pressure games for them anymore. They're not in any of the cups. Like I said, they only need to focus on Europe. So whether it's winning the Europa League or winning the Champions League, that's kind of like what their season has done. Which is
Yeah.
better than West Ham or Spurs, who don't even have Europe to fall back on.
Yeah.
Yeah, Manchester United look very like they might not even finish fifth because Spurs technically are only 2 games behind and 2 points behind. And if they beat Manchester United tomorrow, they will be 2 points behind. They'll be a point ahead and 2 points 2 games in hand.
Yeah. 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 West Ham does have to play Tottenham as well, so that at least from the West Ham point of view, they've got
I
that
don't
in
know
there.
if West Ham can finish in the top four. I don't think so. I don't think West Ham will finish fifth, but I think they could get. They're going to compete for a European spot. But yeah, I think Spurs want to be fifth. I think Arsenal, for the first time in many years, are going to finish above Spurs in the table.
Yeah. Yeah. As I say, the benefit West Ham is they do play all the contenders, so they may get something out of it because they've got a few 6 point games there. With they're playing West Ham, they're playing Arsenal, they're playing us, they're playing City. Playing City and us is 6 points isn't quite right, but it's still a both of
Yeah.
those. Well, West Ham versus City is at home for West Ham, so
And City have shown some vulnerability.
the potentially points there for West Ham to have that could push them up a bit higher, but it does require Arsenal to drop their games in hand, and for Tottenham
Yeah.
as well to drop their games in hand.
There's 10 more games to go for United and City.
Mm.
Liverpool have 11 more games to go. I still think City are going to beat Liverpool
Yeah,
to finish at the top of the table. That is, like, obviously they lost to Liverpool. Um,
yeah,
and they had some bad games, but I think they're back in form.
yeah.
I do think if United get City next round, if they do manage to make the next round of the Champions League, that's gonna be a very interesting game.
That would be an interesting game.
City are already through to the next round, so if
Yeah,
you know, if United get relegated to the Europas, then yeah, it's game over.
I
But
think for the
yeah,
top of the Premiership, yeah. I mean Liverpool's possibly going to come down to the City-Liverpool game on the 11th of April. What's Liverpool got? Arsenal to worry about. They got you guys to worry about, though that's been postponed.
Mm.
Well, they do have the got to play Everton, which Everton's not doing too well, but it is Liverpool-Everton. Like that match is always spicy. They do have Tottenham as well, so there's a few in there that things, and there's a few games to be slotted in there. But I feel that there's still Liverpool goes to the Emirates, plays City. That could be the game that decides it, because if Liverpool do win their game in hand, that's only a 3-point differential, so that's the game they need. And they're currently slightly ahead on goal difference on City.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be a run-in for who scores the most goals.
That could definitely be it. I mean, if Manchester City win all their games apart from that Liverpool game and Liverpool beat them and we have the same result at Liverpool, it will come down to goal difference, won't it? Or will City have...
No,
that's a pointer.
If they all win all their games except City only lose to Liverpool, then it should come down to equal points, and it will be goal differential that will decide it. And say at the moment it's 1 point, so Liverpool's on 51 plus 51, and City's on plus 50. So Liverpool have a lot more goals, well, slightly more goals scored. They've scored 71 goals, so they compared to City's 68. So it's possible that City would have to couldn't just equal that. I would think that Liverpool would probably keep the goal fours ahead, which I'm pretty sure is the next differentiator after goal difference.
And after that, it's head-to-head.
After that's head-to-head.
Which Liverpool are ahead?
Yeah. I think, Liverpool, sort of from those tiebreakers are a bit ahead, but the goal difference one be the big one.
If the head-to-head result had been draws, both of them both games had been draws, the apparent way they decide it is a playoff game.
Oh. I was expecting a coin toss, which would have been hilarious, and sparking a lot of rule change debates, much like the boundary countback. But a playoff game seems like someone's actually thought ahead, or the situation came up and they're like,
about this because Liverpool in 1988, Liverpool lost the lost out on winning the 100th anniversary of the Football League by 1 goal because they had the same goal difference as Arsenal. Going into the final game of the season, Arsenal needed to win. And if they did win, they would have more goals than Liverpool, or a higher goal difference, because that, depending on how many goals they got, that's how it would work out, and they would catch up on points. And that's what happened. Liverpool, I think, lost 2-1 in that game. So Arsenal, those 2 goals made them 1 goal ahead in goal difference. So if Arsenal had won 1-0, there would have been a playoff.
All right.
Because, the goal difference was the same. They just won by 1 extra goal scored.
Yeah. That would have been...
So they made a rule about, okay, so this nearly happened. What do we do if this had been, if Arsenal had gone this, what the situation have been? Because the head-to-head so they decided there's head-to-head and then there's a playoff if the head-to-head is, can't separate the 2 teams.
Yeah.
And I don't think head-to-head takes away goals or anything like that into consideration. It's
it's just straight.
Yeah.
What was if you just have just a straight table with only the 2 of only the people that are equal involved, what does the table look like?
Yeah. The American owners in the Premiership, it's not. I don't think it's a coincidence that they all own clubs that own their stadiums. And a lot of them had very recently refurbished and built new stadiums when they went in and bought them.
Yeah.
I mean, other than Anfield, where they're gonna need to do major work to bring it up, get it up there. Um, and I think Everton don't have American owners, but they're going to get them soon. The owners of the San Francisco 49ers are buying the club as right now, as far as I
Okay.
know. And so even more money. But the part of that condition is the current owners have have got everything in place for Everton to build their new ground, and it's going to be ready. I believe it's going to be ready they're going to play a season in Anfield
Oh, really?
after 120 years. They're
Yeah.
going back to Anfield.
That would be quite an interesting season.
Yeah, so it's already broken ground since last year. So it's being
Yeah.
built as we speak.
Yeah.
So 24-25 season, and I don't believe Goodison Park is being demolished. This is the important thing, and I believe Everton are going to do something with Goodison Park after
After the new stadium's built, yeah.
after the new stadium is built.
Alright, that could be interesting as well. Apparently, it says that Everton said that Goodison Park would be converted to high-quality, affordable housing, a multi-purpose health centre, community-led retail and leisure spaces, and a youth enterprise zone.
So they're going to sell it off, but they're not going to. So they own it, so that's going to be used to finance seems like a bulk of. They're not getting rid of it till they can move in, from the looks of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so apparently a bunch of reasons about UNESCO World Heritage sites and stuff were the issue. But yeah, they're going to get a new 50K stadium. I don't know what Liverpool's stadium situation is. But there's always been, like, for a while, there was a plan that Everton and Liverpool would share a stadium.
Right.
In the docks. Similar region to where Everton are building it now. But in the end, they decided not to do that. Because it'd be interesting if England hosts a Euros again, or if they host the World Cup in 2030 or 2034. As it currently stands, with that, Everton would have a stadium that's only 10 years old at that point.
Yeah.
I think they would be hosting the Liverpool section.
Yeah.
If that happens, they would have the bigger stadium and the newer and better stadium, quote unquote.
I would imagine they would throw a game to Anfield because it's Anfield.
The way the World Cup works, according to how the World Cup works, only one city is allowed to have two host stadiums.
Oh, okay.
So, for example, in the '98 World Cup in France, the new Stade de France and the classic Parc des Princes, where PSG play, were both hosted games. But obviously, Stade de France hosted the final and stuff because it was a purpose-made, brand new stadium. So I imagine in London, as it stands, it would be Wembley and the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, because they're the newest and it's a 60K capacity stadium.
Yeah.
Clearly, super impressive. At this stage, I don't even know if Manchester United Old Trafford would host the Manchester leg, or if it would go to Manchester City.
Yeah.
Given the issues, Old Trafford. But I assume if there's going to be World Cup money, Old Trafford will invest money into building the stadium and getting that gig, because they obviously will they're the biggest domestic stadium outside of Wembley in the country when it comes to seats.
Yeah.
And can be expanded to being the largest in the country if they wanted to. And also, I think the Saudis buying Newcastle, that's also a club with a big stadium that's decently been upgraded. I think they're also planning to spend money to get it even more upgraded and modernized. Interestingly, Newcastle's nearest rival, Sunderland, have the youngest owner.
Oh, really?
He's only about 27 years old or something like that.
Yeah.
He's from a super rich French family, but
not surprising then.
This is that's the sort of thing, I think, who you were saying, the richest man in the UK.
Yeah, Sir Jim Ratcliffe.
That's the sort of situation where I expect him to go into, buying a club like Sunderland, a fallen giant who can be brought back in because they have all the assets and catchment area and everything. Like a club like maybe Middlesbrough or
Yeah.
QPR.
Yeah.
Though QPR do have rich owners.
I suppose. Don't know with that one, but yeah, I would say you're right. Some sort of League One Championship club, say Fallen Giant, would be a classic one for him, and then being able to build it back up.
Like London is that crowded area, right? And Brentford have
Very close.
shown that you don't need to have much money to go in, but you have to be very clever with how you spend money in that area.
Yeah.
I think the Brentford model, like they're upfront about it to their players. Like, if you get a good offer from a bigger club, we'll absolutely let you go. Like that's one of our draws. We're not one of those clubs that try to hold on to you, blah, blah, blah. But, at the right time, like, at the end of the season, that's the sort of thing we'll negotiate with the club. We don't, we want to secure your move in a way that allows us to use the funds properly and everything,
Yeah. That everybody gets the best out of it. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a few clubs like that in the UK doing that, so even if Chelsea were to have a few shaky years under a new ownership, assuming that did happen, whether it's Chelsea Pitch Owners Association that are the owners, or whether it's like a new billionaire in town owning it, it could be a hard thing to get back into the top four. Because we know next season, it looks like Newcastle are not going to be relegated. They are going to be a club that's going to try and push for at least a top 10 finish, a Euro, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think the owners are going to demand a top 4 finish right now.
No.
Because Newcastle are a good 7 points above Burnley with the same number of games.
Yeah.
Brentford are only 6 points above Burnley, with 2 more games played, so they have to be careful. Leeds are in genuine trouble, I think.
Yes.
Game ahead of Burnley, with only 2 points ahead. Everton are only a point ahead, but they do have a game on hand against
And with
Burnley.
Leeds, they've lost their last 5, so that's not a good sign.
Norwich and Watford have basically dropped down. I may have given Norwich the kiss of death, unfortunately. There, but yeah, I would feel a bit sad if Brentford did get relegated. They looked like a very interesting club that were doing cool things. And I would love to see that experiment continue in the Premier League to see how long it's sustainable. Like clubs like Brentford, Southampton, Crystal Palace. How long, and Brighton to a degree, how long they can continue doing what they're doing. Yeah, like Newcastle, if they don't get relegated, are going to be competing for at least a top 6, top 7 spot, I think.
Yeah.
On the.
Well, they'll have. Be interesting to see what money they splash around.
Yeah.
Over the off season, and that I would say that a top half finish would be minimum considerations, and that the money would be spent trying to ensure that they've got a team that would be in that position, as you say, and then aiming at European football qualification of some sort.
Yeah, I'm sure the Saudi investment fund, totally not Mohammed bin Salman. He's not the owner, honest.
No.
Just
totally
the director of just the owner of the Saudi investment fund. Shh. Back. He will be happy to invest really in the stadium and other things, making Newcastle, long term be able to earn more money as long as they don't threaten relegation and are competing into getting into Europe. He might not for the next 3 to 5 years maybe. He'd be happy to do that and then be like, okay, we've got a system set up and we can build a team that can compete for a top 4 and maybe even the championship. Yeah, at that point. Okay, there's Manchester United. Obviously, is always going to be in the conversation. I think Arsenal have a decent group of people now, and with the way the club's finances are set up, I think I wouldn't be surprised if 3 to 4 years from now, Arsenal are a club that you go, yeah, they're they can compete for a top four side. It also obviously depends on how much financial backing they get from Kroenke. Liverpool, who knows what's going to happen after Klopp. Chelsea, who knows what's going to happen after Abramovich.
Yeah. See how
Spurs
that goes.
are been Spurs for so long. You at this point they're financially viable, so they're always going to be a club that competes for top four. I think, given how much they've invested in a big stadium and all these other things.
Yeah.
To a certain degree, it almost doesn't matter about Spurs as manager, like Chelsea's, if you know what I mean. Like
Yeah.
the systems are in place for Spurs to at least be Spurs.
Yeah.
Whether Spurs are a club that would potentially attract a billionaire owner at some point is a different kettle of fish, I
Yeah.
think. I mean, they are owned by a billionaire currently, John Lewis.
Yeah.
But Spurs are another club that could also be looked at by backed by a state
Yeah.
level money, because as it is, it's a very viable investment. Like I know people in New Zealand would probably cry, but if New Zealand Super invested in buying a Premier League football club, the New Zealand Super Fund,
Yeah.
like we'd all be like, yeah, that is actually earning us money, by the way. Like this is a good return on investment.
Actually earning money, exactly. And as you say, it would be actually a decent return on money too at Tottenham, because they could giggle crowds.
Yeah.
But they don't go silly on spending money, so.
Yeah, it's similar to like if a club, if something like Norway's sovereign wealth fund, the richest sovereign wealth fund on the planet, I believe it's worth more than $2 trillion.
Wow.
Yeah, that's all the oil of Norway.
Yeah. I
Like
know where it comes from.
it's owned by the Norwegian people, and it's one and like it's not just oil money. They've actually invested that money really well since getting oil money. They could buy a football club,
They could.
or a company that buys a football club, invest in it.
Yeah.
If football is such a surefire financial winner, why not? But I think maybe a lot of those companies are just going to look and see what the economic situation in Britain will be like after the coronavirus and Brexit and the war and all these other things.
There's a few things going
Once again,
on there.
I'm not an expert about politics or economics. I'm just saying that might be why those entities have not considered buying a British football club yet.
Yeah. And I guess even though it's, you say, the last few years especially have still shown the viability of that, it's still, I would say, traditional thinking would say it's not an investment. But I think, especially with the Saudi investment fund going in over the next couple of years, it may become a bit more of a thing where actual sovereign or countries' investment funds start buying sports teams and Premier League football clubs, expecting a return and making money out of it. But as I say, maybe at the moment there's a little bit of uncertainty. There's still a little bit of traditional, I guess, thought process on it, where it would be that that's not a smart investment. But give it a couple of years, and all these things would hopefully have been settled down one way or the other, and then you may see even more money being pumped into some of these different clubs.
Yeah, absolutely. And they don't necessarily have to buy a club that's top four getting Champions League money, by the way. They might be happy to own a club like Southampton, Crystal Palace, for example, Aston Villa.
Ones that are making money, getting good turnover. That's the important bit, right? If you're investing in, you're worried about how much you're getting back out of it. So if it's making money, you're getting money back, and then you can always sell later on. And if the value's the value's going up, then you're making money all the way through.
Like there's a reason why the Championship playoff final is the richest game in sports.
Yeah.
Because it basically earns you $80 million right then and there.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's to be fair, not just Premier League football. Like once rules around owning North American sports teams get looked at, what's stopping an oil billionaire from the Middle East or Eastern Europe or anywhere else in the world for that matter, or any other type of billionaire for that matter, buying like an NFL team or a
Yeah.
NBA team? To be fair, that's already happened in the NBA. Um,
Yeah.
the New Jersey Nets are owned by a Russian billionaire. It was a Ukrainian billionaire.
Don't
New
know.
Jersey Nets. They're the Brooklyn Nets now. God, I'm aging myself with my so much in this in this podcast so far. Oh, a Russian oligarch owned the Brooklyn Nets, and then
Yeah.
he bought. They were still the New Jersey Nets when he bought them, and then he moved them to Brooklyn. But they're currently owned by owners of Alibaba, one of
Ah,
the
yes, yes.
founders of Alibaba. Though he's Canadian and Taiwanese. Yeah, like that's gonna happen too. Like sports ownership. This is the thing in the economy. When it comes to economies, things like earning money from sports and entertainment and generating all this money, people complain about like the wealth and things, but from an economic perspective, it's the best. It's sustainable. We're never running out of people. Like
Yeah,
we've
yeah.
got it there. Like we're in a world of like, so, and we need attention. We need our attention used up. Like time, our free time to do stuff.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's
yeah.
there. That's a viable. That's a sustainable resource that keeps regenerating, as opposed to like most commodities based business where you're selling actual stuff or making stuff. you are it's coming from a resource that's eventually finite
Yeah. In
at
some way,
some
it's
point.
finite. Yeah.
Sure, solar energy might be the exception, but even the stuff to make batteries and things for solar energy is finite.
Yeah.
You know, um, though there may be ways to do it, recycle it, and do it things. Like I'm not a tech expert. But but an economy based entirely on services and entertainment, that's sustainable. We're not polluting. Yeah, in theory, not polluting, not producing waste, not producing from the product itself. Sure, people exist who consume it might be making waste and polluting, but they do that anyway. It's not like they do it more when they are watching sport or watching
Yeah, yeah.
movies.
Yeah, yeah.
So while I understand people's concerns about sports, there being too much money in sports and it's not pure like the old days, blah blah blah. I fully understand that,
Mm.
but I'd rather the money be spent here than in other industries like arms and
Yeah, yeah.
like like big pharmaceuticals, like keeping life-saving medication patented for longer than it needs to be, things like this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
As far as the capitalism that the way it works in sports is kind of benign.
Yeah.
It actually has a lot of pluses, like very few negatives other than it's not like before.
Yeah. It's not pure
In
anymore.
some
It's
ways,
not.
there's definitely other negatives, but that's
Yeah.
like the main negative.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that it's more about the purity and the traditional ways of playing sport, and it's the team that had the best ability. And now it's like the team that has the best financials to buy those players. But it's still in the end the team with the best athletic ability. It's just that those players can actually be
Yeah,
rewarded for such ability and play together and be awesome and get paid lots for it.
it's just a thing that's gonna grow. It'll be interesting to see how the world football market evolves. As like Africa and Asia, get more people, and obviously Asia's population has peaked, kind of, not almost, for this century, but Africa is going to be where most of the world's population growth is coming from, if all the models for pop growth can be believed and are accurate. I think currently Africa has a population of 1.5 billion people, give or take. And the thing is, at the end of the century, it's expected to be 4 billion.
All right, yeah. Those are decent.
So also basically a decent chunk of the world's economic growth is also coming from Africa for that reason.
Yeah, yeah.
So, football, they're already making an African Super League. What's that gonna do? Do we have a future, like, even 20 years from now, where that's basically maybe the second biggest league after the Premier League?
Yeah, maybe.
Because at the moment, the Premier League's bigger than the Champions League in many ways.
Yeah, yeah.
The Champions League spots are coveted because it's extra broadcast money for being in the Champions League for the clubs.
Yeah, exactly.
But, a club that's in the Champions League and threatening relegation will focus on staying in the Premier League rather than try to win the Champions League.
Yeah, yeah.
And that is the right way to do it, by the way.
Yes, exactly.
Your league position is your regular, it's your bread and butter.
Exactly.
You can't leave that out.
But I would still love a championship team to be playing in the Champions League, which would be hilarious.
We may have that one day. Who knows?
We may.
Leicester almost pulled it off. Excuse me. But I think we may have had a second division, a club that be relegated in a season. They got into the Champions League, like they won a Europa League and then got into a Champions League, but they also got relegated.
Yeah.
I know Ipswich got relegated into the Championship, but were in the Europa League because they won the Fair Play trophy.
All right. Yes. Yes.
And imagine if they had won back then, winning the UEFA Cup did not get you a Champions League spot, but yeah, might have been plausible. Oh. So as always, when we speak about football, we end our segment on the Mo Corner.
Mo Corner.
Last time it expanded a bit into Euro Corner.
Yeah.
We can't promise that won't happen, but it probably won't happen this time. So currently, the club we are following this season, AS Roma, are at 6, ahead of Lazio by 1 point, which I think will please all their fans.
Equal on points with Atalanta.
They're equal on points with Atalanta, but Atalanta have a game on hand with them.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I've been giving the kiss of death to a lot of teams this season, and Atalanta was one of them.
Yeah.
But the Roma got a recent in their last game managed to beat Atalanta 1-0, which pushed them up. They could end up finishing ahead of Atalanta depending on how the game progresses to 5th. Juve are only 6 points ahead of them at best point with 10 games to go. I think Juve have a relatively difficult set of games coming up, like Napoli, I think, and Napoli are part of that conversation for the top spot, right? They're on the same number of games as AC Milan and only 3 points behind. Inter have a game in hand, only 2 points behind. So I do think that top 3 is still too close to call, in my opinion. I like Inter. I think they will win.
Yeah,
I think I would not be surprised if any of those three win. Like
I
that's a
wouldn't be
very
surprised either.
competitive.
But I think their game in hand sort of gives Inter perhaps the slightly pole position. Though as we say, Milan does have the points sitting there, so but it is only the
Yeah,
one game, so I think Inter there. So no, and all three of their form is about as equal as each other. Inter perhaps slightly worse. They've had 2 losses in the last 5 games. Milan's had none, 2 draws. Napoli's had 1 loss and 2 draws.
yeah.
Not too much differences there.
No, there isn't much difference there. They're all having good seasons, I think. So to compare Roma to Juve, I think just to see how their fixtures align. At the moment, Roma are still in the Conference League, and I think potential like one of the teams that could be one of the favorites to win the Conference League
Mm,
with Mourinho in charge, who's a cup specialist in many ways.
yeah,
Um, they do have a game against Udinese for the in March the 14th, a few days after their Europa Conference League fixture, and then they do have the cross time, the Eternal City derby against
yeah,
Lazio on the 21st at home. They managed to get the draw against Lazio at Lazio, so they will want to do one better at least, I think, and try and get the points. Other than that, none of the teams they have the other than the last two games in April against Napoli and Inter, um,
yeah.
they don't have any teams that are above them in the table that they're facing. I do think Napoli and Inter will beat Roma,
Probably, yeah,
because they've been in good form, and Roma hasn't shown the ability to beat teams that are better than them, other than Atlanta.
yeah, yeah,
They've been winning the games we expect them to win. Um, Juve still have a Champions League thing, and if they get relegated from the Champions League, they will go into the Europa League. After this, they've got Inter to play, and they have Lazio to play.
yeah,
So, a couple of teams that are fighting it out for those Euro spots, for that fourth place in their thing, but the relatively more benign fixture list, I think, for Juve. I
yeah.
want to say, like,
Well,
just other than a game against Inter, all of these other games are winnable for them, like
yeah,
Serie A
yeah,
games, that is.
yeah, exactly.
I mean,
I think,
Even Lazio, like, sure, at that point it might not matter, like, because it's coming
yeah,
so late in the season.
exactly. As I was saying, it was just those last 2 games of the season for Juventus, Lazio, and then Fiorentina. And Fiorentina is still hanging into the conversation about
Yeah,
it. Not really. They've got a game in hand, which sort of helps. That gives them the 46 points if they win that. They don't win that, then they're definitely out. But that game in hand, if they win it, um, keeps them just in the conversation about definitely about European um, competition and sort of very much on the edge for Champions League spots. So I think we can keep them as a potential bit there, at
yeah,
least in the same terms that Lazio is. So saying that Juventus having them at the last two, sort of, I would expect them to win both of those, but things. But like Roma's got Florentina as well as Lazio. So um,
yeah,
yeah, the bits for Roma is that's probably going to drop them out of the conversation is the Napoli Inter
yeah. I think
games,
those two games are going to get them out of the
which
competition.
Juventus doesn't have that the same. They got Inter, but yeah, it's not. They don't have both of them. You know, week
And we can't
after
count
week.
out Atalanta, to be fair.
No, Atlanta is still a very strong contender here, and they've got Napoli
They've
and
got
Milan.
Napoli coming
And,
up. And to be fair, Atalanta are not going to fear Napoli. They have a philosophy, and it's successful. It does work. They've had a few injuries, but the run of games, other than Napoli, are winnable. I want to
Yeah.
say for
They
them.
do have Milan second to last back on the 16th of May, so that's
Yeah,
AC
that's
Milan, so
true.
that's another one that unlikely to pick up points on, but I think that's sort of just
They could be the
yeah,
spoiler in that
they
game
they could be the
and
spoiler there.
give and hand Napoli or into the championship.
Yeah. But looking at that, I would say that Juventus is the strong favourite for the fourth spot, and then Atlanta and Roma are probably the next,
But
sorting out the
I
next two.
hadn't heard this, but the owners of the Boston Celtics have bought a 55% stake in Atalanta.
Oh,
So things are going to be interesting for them. They're already a Moneyball club,
yeah,
well run, profitable, and keep
yeah,
spend well, scout well, and they have a philosophy
yeah,
and a
yeah,
good setup. So be interesting to see what will happen to them
yeah.
in
That'd be
the
very interesting.
seasons.
Yeah, and the last bit, just in terms of Mourinho's future, looks like the game against Lazio will probably be the one that determines who out of the two of those finishes above the other. They both have
Yeah,
similar-ish ends to the season in terms
I
of
think
likelihood for points. So I
that might
think,
be his game of the season.
yeah,
And then second season, he's gonna win a championship for Roma, right? That's what he does,
that's what he does.
right? Right?
Yeah,
Other
it
than for
depends.
United and Spurs.
Yeah. So it depends. It sort of depends if you count the half season last year as the first season or not.
Sure.
Yeah. Maybe he'll be top at halfway through next year, and then start falling out. He's out by half a season.
Maybe Tommy Abraham will be motivated to try and get into an England team for the World Cup this year.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
you never know, and he seems to be in good form at the moment.
He's a good player, so I would imagine that he'd want to do something. So that could possibly be
Especially since like sure Harry Kane has come back into form massively in the last few weeks,
yeah,
but he's not had the best form. Marcus Rashford has not had the best form. Raheem Sterling has not had the best form.
yeah,
Um, the I think Saka is an incredible form at the moment, but people like Calvert-Lewin is injured. Um, so there are places up for grabs in that
yeah,
squad
yeah, definitely.
for strikers. And Mason Greenwood is not playing for England this summer. Like that's like not happening.
Yeah,
So, there's a bunch of players he doesn't have to worry about. So currently he has 27 appearances for Roma
hmm
and scored 13 goals.
nice.
So not bad at all.
Not a bad
And 3 assists.
Oh, there we go. That's pretty good. Pretty good return there, really, for him.
Yeah. Zero subs, so he's all starting those positions,
Oh, nice. Yeah, yeah.
those games. So yeah, he's quietly had a really good season in the Serie
Mm.
A. And Serie A is a good defensive league as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So he is Roma's current highest goal scorer. So
All
he's
right.
gonna play a big role in whether or not Uncle Mo gets to keep his job.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
But yeah. as I said, I think
Yeah.
that's all we have time for today. Hope you all have enjoyed. And keep safe, and
Yes.
we will
And
hear
hopefully
from
a little
you
bit
all
in
next time.
chat as well on the Discord. We'll hear from you next time.